Welcome to The Notice, a podcast from Otava with host TJ Howski and Melissa Locke.
Welcome to episode 8 of The Notice.
All right, well, if you missed last week's episode, we spent time with Yves Sandfort, founder and CEO of Comdivision, over 30 years of thought leadership in cloud, advanced technologies, even emerging technologies. And so we're really excited to get to hear more from Yves in the future. It was a lot of fun. But most importantly, what his company does to help organizations like Otava, because there's many of us out there trying to make a difference with technology. And I'm a firm believer that it's about who you partner with. You can't do everything on your own. So exciting content.
That's right. There was just too much good information for one episode. So we're going to continue to talk with Yves this week, and we're going to get to know him a little more, talk about our partnership with On the Road Again campaign, and hear his take on hot technology right now.
Good stuff. All right. So Mo, what have you been up to since we talked last?
Yeah, so I've been working with a group on some leadership principles. And really the main message has been, and I don't know, I feel like I have to say it a lot. When there's people under you that you influence, you don't have to let them know if you disagree with a business decision. So somewhere along the way, some managers believe that their disapproval of a decision that's already been agreed upon by the company, leadership has said this is where the direction we're going, that there's some leaning into, well, I just want to be authentic, or I want to, I need to be transparent. Well, that's
Sure.
not necessarily true when you're in an influential role. And so there's just two outcomes when a business decision or a strategic goal has been made. And those two outcomes are you choose to buy in and be great, or you could choose to be great somewhere else. So there's this weird idea that there's this third option that you can stay and complain and stay and resist and stay and disrupt. That third option just doesn't exist. And it sounds harsh, but that is how you protect your culture, protect your work environment. And I'm just a bit bullish on protecting both of those. So that's been kind of my focus this past week, is getting leaders to kind of just elevate a little bit in how you influence others.
That's good stuff. I don't think it's harsh at all. I think we live in a culture today where we confuse the difference between having the opportunity to speak and share our thoughts versus forcing ourselves to speak to everything.
That's
And
right.
I really appreciated the conversation. It was over a board dinner one night. I got to hear Todd Schurz, hopefully enjoying retirement. So shout out to Todd if he's listening. But he talked about, voice, vote, and veto, right? Or sorry, view, voice, vote, and veto, right? An opportunity to sit in a room. Sometimes you're viewing. Sometimes you have a voice in that room. Sometimes you have a vote in that room. And sometimes the very few have a veto in that room. But what that message was really about is know your role, right? Know your audience, know your role. And at the end of the day, your job is to contribute. And when you start to understand how that all comes together, I think even if you're in disagreement, you can do it in a positive way that adds value. It's not about getting your way. It's not how it works. So it's good. I appreciate that. It's good feedback.
Yeah, and speaking of Todd, he was always had a rule of speaking last. That was his own rule to himself. He would only speak at the very end and let others have the opportunity to share first.
He's still teaching us.
That's right.
It's good stuff. Oh, well, let's see. The last week we got to be together in Denver, so that was fun. Every business has, strategic planning. Sometimes the word gets so broadly stated that people don't know what that means. There's a tactical element to it. And so as we start to think about a bigger picture of 5 years, and working in 5-year chunks, it's how do you execute in 1 year increments? And then what are the pivots that you might need to take into consideration that tie it all together? And so we spent the first part of last week together in Denver with our some of our senior members of leadership and our executive members of the leadership team, and really put together our final thoughts on, okay, here's what the 5-year looks like. But then what does 2024 look like when we marry that to things like customer centricity and our focus there, or engaging purposefully, or how does that marry to technology from a management innovation perspective and integration into those strategies? So that was a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Really enjoyed it. It's, I think, even a lot more work than you give it credit for, even though we've done this about 3, almost 4 times now together here in our careers. It's every time it comes around, you think this will be a little bit easier. We've done this before. It's not. It's very, very intentional. It's good work. It's rewarding, but that was a lot of fun. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I would say it is a lot of work, but it is the rewarding piece. Like I understand the business a little bit more each time, and I probably
Yep.
the most out of this session, just given some of the new leaders we have and the discussions that we're having,
Yeah.
and the way you conduct meetings, letting everyone have a voice. It was really good session.
That's that's good. I'm glad. And shout out, by the way, I know we've got those coming up, but I'll kind of be a little early. Shout out to Brian Hokelman. So we have a new leader here that I'm gonna give credit on public podcasts here to Mo, who challenged me and said, "Hey, like I think the timing is now." We had in our strategy and in our planning, we had like we need to get the right product leader in here, product technology leader, and we both were immediately impressed in our conversation with Brian. And Mo was bullish and said, I think the timing is now. I've got to challenge you that the timing is now. And you weren't wrong. Brian just hit a home run in that room, and
Yeah,
everybody
he
had
did.
an incredible epiphany. He shared great wisdom. So, Brian, we're glad to have you. It's a lot of fun. We're already learning from you. So, very, very cool.
Well, now it's out there, so don't let us down. Like pressure's on.
Yeah. There's, I mean, it's Todd, you're on the public wire, so you're going to be fine.
That's right.
I love it.
So let's talk about some industry news. I keep seeing more and more about healthcare systems getting hit with cyber attacks. What's your take? You've worked in the healthcare industry. You've definitely worked in security. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's gross. Like that
Hmm.
is the most technical term I can come up with right now. It is gross, right? And so, yeah, for those that don't know, I spent a good chunk of my career in healthcare IT. Was very fortunate, got an incredible learning opportunity to lead one of the nation's largest hospital systems, specializing in orthopedic care. And there's a lot that goes with that, just health information technology management. It's about patient care. It's about protecting those patients and the related elements, including their data, right? And as you live in that world, you realize how different healthcare as a business is and how hard it is to run a profitable hospital. So there's a lot of elements to that.
Yeah.
And so as a result, because it costs so much and because the risk reward is so high, it's a prime target for cybersecurity attacks. Especially because you have this situation in which you have a data rich target largely struggling with financial obligations. That's just commonplace in healthcare because of the rising costs to get good talent that have education, particularly in the area of security, not just compliance, but true technology and security. And so it's just right there, kind of ripe for the picking, if you will. And I think this most recent report that you and I were going back and forth on is IBM's security, the cost of a data breach report. And I know that since 2020, they were saying costs had increased by 42%, which is bananas
Yeah.
when you think about that. So when you think for the 12th year in the row, rising costs, average industry breach cost has now exceeded $10 million. And you look at the war that is really going on, and it is a war of good versus evil in this area. The challenge that a lot of these companies have too is that, understandably so, insurance companies are saying, geez, it's hard for us to protect against that risk. Do we even want to stay in that from providing the right kind of cyber liability insurance, to covered entities, business associates, and those people? So I don't know that there's yet an answer for it. There isn't like a push button technology that just thwarts ransomware and you never have to deal with it. It really starts and stops always with people and education. But certainly one of the biggest challenges that still exists. And so this is really cool if you're somebody watching this, that there's massive career opportunity, professional growth in cybersecurity. They just
Yeah.
can't really fill the positions quick enough. And so if there's ever an area that you're interested in learning and feel like maybe you're like, I don't know where to start if I wanted to jump into technology and learning, you really aren't behind the 8 ball in security. You could start today and be effective right out of the gate with just learning the fundamentals and applying yourself to it. So But gross, I think, defines the situation, and hopefully, companies like Otava and others that play their part in that can add value and help to, try to fend that off. So
Yeah, that's a great idea with the career pathing, and young folks not knowing what to do and giving a direction there. It's not going away. That's exactly right. And
it's
so,
not.
yeah, that's a good idea. I like that little shout out to all the young folks out there. Like, what can I do?
Yeah, for sure.
So let's give our shout outs for the week. You kind of kicked it off a little bit earlier. We were talking about Brian. It kind of teased into my shout out, which I'm doing a group shout out. I don't know the rules here, but I may be breaking them, but that's okay.
I think we make them. We get
Oh,
to
good,
make the rules, which is
good.
awesome.
So I'm doing a group because we did have meaningful strategic planning sessions last week, and I just wanted to give a shout out to our leadership team. Each member leaned in and put in a high degree of effort into these plans for next year and ongoing. And the engagement has me really excited for Otava and really excited just for myself and the opportunity to learn from each of them. And we have, Brian and Doug and new members on our team, and it already feels so cohesive. And that takes purposeful effort in itself. So, way to go, leaders. Shout out to the Otava leadership team.
That's
Yeah.
right. I'm with you. I gave my shout out to Brian, but I echo it. I think you're spot on that having the right people in the right room, doing the right things at the right time, makes a big difference. And so I think probably the biggest lesson that I've learned in interdisciplinary team management, and that's a really big word of just putting a lot of people in a room that have different strengths and different weaknesses, because we all have them, is giving everybody the opportunity to add both their strength and be safe in their weakness.
Yes.
And sometimes that's what people really struggle with in leadership, is they come in together in a room and they all posture like, I got to give the best of me, only the best of me, instead of, you can't really get the whole plan pulled together until you can appreciate those things you're not good at, and then ask the people in the room that are, and then you can cover your blind spots. And I think that we did a really good job of that as a group. And so I'm excited about transitioning now from, strategy to execution.
That's right.
So be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Awesome. All right, I want to welcome Yves to the podcast. He is our strategic partner. We're so very excited to have him here with us today. So you've partnered with us in our On the Road Again campaign. And so what value do you see getting back out in front of customers and spending time, just getting to know them? You're in California today, these meetings without sales pitches.
I think one of the main reasons why I like the campaign, and it kind of rolls back into what we try to train our people on all the time, is you really need to understand what the customer is working for, what's their target, because their target is, for the majority of customers, otherwise they would be service providers as well, is not running IT. Their business is something else. And it's always very important to fully understand what the customer, what really drives them forward, what are they looking for, because as soon as you know that, you can also help them really grow their business as well. As funny as it sounds, it's like we have spent far too much time in IT talking about ROIs and all kinds of things, versus just understanding what our customers want and why they want that. And once we understand that, we can actually work from there and really build a stronger future out of that altogether. And from my experience, it builds a much stronger relationship between a supplier and a customer if you really know each other. The other part is the last few years where we had a pandemic, we sometimes lost a bit track of the face-to-face contact, and I think it's very important. I think it's the challenge at the moment is trying to figure out what is the correct value, or not the correct value, but the correct volume of one-on-one meetings. But it is required to really meet in person from time to time, whether it's with customers, with suppliers, with whatever else. And really having the time to talk about, hey, what's going on? It's like, where are we heading to? And not so much as like, hey, I brought this brochure about this wonderful new product. Don't you want to talk about that? But more really understanding what drives the other person, and that clearly can talk about a roadmap or something else. And I think that's why we were immediately in when we understood what this program is about is like it kind of actually reflects exactly our same values and our same approach, where we say is like it's very important that we all understand why we are in this game. As soon as we do this, we can actually win this together. It's like try to sell to a football player uniform or something else if you don't understand what he's going to do on the field. You might actually send him a cheerleader's costume. He will have a lot of fun with his team if he tries to actually win a game with that. But that's exactly it. If I don't understand, if I only know he's actually in that football organization, but I don't know if he's a player, a cheerleader, a judge, or whatever else, it's going to be hard for me to help him really come out as the best person whatsoever. And that's exactly where we need to be. Is like we need to understand what customers really want and how they want it and why they want it. How can it be more successful for their business? And I think this is something overall for the IT industry where we completely lost plot over the last 15 years. It's so much about features and whether the LED is blue, green, red, or yellow, versus what is the business outcome out of it. And that's why I like it.
Home run, Yves. Home run.
That's right.
We're seeing the same thing, and I share the same passion that it's easy that like attracts like, right? So naturally, if you're in technology at some point in your younger years, you fell in love with it. And when you fall in love with something, you want to talk about that. And you attract other people that want to talk about that. And so you continue to talk about that without realizing that it's not really helping those people that don't understand it. And the responsibility is to bring value with what you understand to other people, and at the same time seek to understand what their needs are. And when you put the two together, you can create successful outcomes. You can change the perspective of IT being an operating expense versus IT being an enabling investment, right? There's things that it can do if it's done the right way. And so we've seen that in our On the Road campaign. And for those listening, Comdivision is partnering with us in this. And so we've been giving out gifts for time to our customers to say thank you as we spend time with them, to introduce that one of our strategic partnerships in Comdivision, and the reason that we're doing it is for that reason, which is, hey, first off, we all faced a pandemic. And we all are trying to figure out this thing called in-person meetings again. What's the right way to socially communicate, get together? Do we talk 6 feet apart or not, right? Like all the different things that kind of come into this whole figuring this thing out. But then as we start to really build that momentum again in what's the right cadence, what's the right volume, to your point, at the end of the day, you're trying to achieve one thing, which is how do we solve problems together? And we just happen to do it through technology. Other people do it through medicine or law or finance, right? And so we hope that that's the message that we're able to translate. So well said. I really appreciate that. It's nice to, get your perspective. So
yeah, I could totally, listening to him speak, I was like, I can see how you two connected. Like that was just, it's so similar. So yeah, that's good to see. Okay, now let's talk about what's going on in the industry. What's hot right now?
I think it's what's hot right now. I think AI is no longer hot anymore. I mean, everybody has figured out what ChatGPT can do, and that you no longer need to write your homework for your school anymore, and that there is a service for that. And I think that's perfectly fine. But I think we are all still in the beginning phase to trying to understand how these systems and services can actually help us and become better companies. I can fully understand why people are completely scared of these new technologies, but we also must say we are still miles or years away from the horror scenarios people are drawing up. Clearly, we need to be careful with that, like with any other new technology, on how we are going to use it and how easily you can trick them. We played around with one as well and got even, after a bit of messing around with it, one of the large manufacturers, LLM, to the case from first understanding us and one of our competitors up to the point that it actually, by influencing with it or asking the questions in the right way or in the way how we thought we could trick out the system, to the point that the competitor all of a sudden was a subsidiary of us. When you imagine these specific scenarios that you can influence these systems like you can influence a human being, I mean, in the end, we did nothing else, and it showcased how near these systems are potentially. We went in there and tried to manipulate the system. And I think when we look at it, what's currently hot is AI and ML is going to make our life a hell lot easier, similar to where we had things like Alexa and other things before. It's like nowadays, when you need something, you are no longer thinking about that. In which store could I drive to actually get that? In most cases, you go on one of the big shopping platforms, and one of them has enough favorites so that I don't need to call them out again all the time. But no, you go on a shopping platform or on a search engine and you search for it. And in many cases, you don't bother about going and buying it anymore. And I think that is just the next generation of things we are going to have. And where we all had the opinion when Alexa and Siri and all of this came out that basically what we are now getting with ML and AI would be there already. Reality is this whole scenario of voice assistants, it was nice, but it was very simplistic commands. We are now that they are going to join these systems, we are going to see something interesting. And that's the point where I can potentially, and this is where we come back to our industries and everything else, where I can potentially then talk to the system and tell it is like, hey, can you review the Ottawa design for the XYZ data center? We need to make an adjustment and actually do the following things. And I can either talk to that system or actually write it in the chat window or however that's going to look like. And I was just on a conference where someone said, it's like, isn't that highly scary for you? Because you make a hell lot of business around writing designs and architecture in the first place. And I said, it's like, yes. And my grandfather was actually an architect who built churches and things like that. And he did that in handwriting without CAD or anything else. Is the whole industry gone away? No, you still have architects. Technology evolves. Things evolve. And I'm not writing anymore on a typewriter and have to actually kill myself for making 5 mistakes and having to rewrite the whole page again. Things evolve. And the next generation in that specific scenario is going to be that we have systems which we can tell what we want and they will do something. How fast will we be at the point that we don't have to check what the computer does? Currently, I treat that more like my 6-year-old. I better actually read the homework again and just don't only believe that it has been done and that it has been fully done. So that's exactly the same. We have technologies which will help us a lot. And I think the next few years are going to be very interesting in that space to see what's coming. At the same point in time, that does not require that we need completely new data centers or something else, because in the end, it's still the same technology. And similar to where you said you have these codeless developments and all these kinds of things. In the end, when we think about that, BASIC was nothing different as a very basic programming language in the days, because it also only translates back into assembler in the end so that it can run on the CPU. And all of these new technologies are just abstracting layers. And AI ML is going to be, I think, the big thing in our industry in the next few years. But I think we are still far away from all the horror scenarios and everything else. It's very simplistic still. It can do scary things, especially when you look at images and things like that. But we also have a lot of things to clarify still. Is who owns IP? What is it if that AI ML engine, if I look at it, ChatGPT actually was on our webpage and actually stole all our case studies and basically can now write its own case study out of it. Did we ever give it approval to do that? No. Is it our IP from a copyright perspective? Yes. If I can prove, so tons of things. So that's going to be interesting. I think we will see new devices also coming out, and that's going to be interesting. The way how people are going to access computers. Starting in January, I'm still trying to figure out which state I'm going to hit to buy my my Apple glasses. And No, the point is when you face it, it's like too many people are too focused on the fun use case of it. When you look at the business use cases for it, there is a huge use case for it. When you think about something very simplistic, I can foresee that potentially even airlines, it's going to be cheaper for an airline in first class or business class to hand out Apple glasses than building these TVs in the seats, which are horrible. They are small like this, have a horrible resolution. You can now put on glasses which basically have a full HD or a 4K screen resolution, and you can watch everything in real time, and you don't need to have a computer with you. So they are going to change a lot of things, and considering that you can use them for meetings and things like that, potentially I could, if I would have had that, I could actually walk around wonderful Bay Area and actually run the podcast with you in parallel, which is still, when you walk around with a mobile phone and AirPods, it's still an awkward situation. But we will see people run around with these weird glasses on and actually just walk through the park. And you never know what they are watching. Think about it.
You never know, and I don't know that I want to in some situations. But no, Yves, I think it's great feedback. I think it's interesting how cyclical innovation, right? How you watch things get invented, and I think we've exited this initial stage of innovation that is like, hey, we're gonna introduce a new concept in technology and AI ML, and a lot of people haven't realized that this is just a technology that has finally matured to a place in which it's generally available and more welcomed and understood and easy to interact with. What is highly complex has been made to be less complicated that people can interact with it. And here we are 60 plus years into it, not 12 months as some people would think with ChatGPT. And they're realizing, oh, wow, this is a really useful thing. And I think that's what you're going to see the most, in my opinion, next between AI and ML is human augmentation, where you're going to see a person that embraces AI and integrates it into their job, and a company that understands the ethical requirements and the obligations and those things to first create efficiencies in a business is going to allow for a much better work environment. If you can just think about how technology used the right way at the direction of what the human actually wants it to do, is going to be really, really powerful, and you can put a ton of value on top of that. And then you're going to get into the nuanced cases of where it's going to be, cutting edge and bleeding edge. And I think, to your point, there's a ways to go before we get into, sci-fi movie experiences that folks worry about and kind of forecast. But I think in current reality, when you can think about the efficiencies that you can create for folks, whether it's contract support, right? Or understanding best practices and being able to pull recent best practices real time, or, being able to get quick instructions on how to's and not feel like you're surfing all over for hours on end to find relevant, accurate information. There's a lot of really great things to come. And so hopefully people will learn to embrace technology the right way, not from a fear-filled perspective, but from a hopeful, excited perspective. And I'm certain that with your voice and my voice and others out there that are trying to encourage people to take it on for the right reasons, they'll be excited to go play with it. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it scales and grows. So, well, Mo,
Yeah,
you're on to your last and favorite question. This is one of your
that's right.
favorite
It
questions.
is my favorite question. So, when you're outside of work, what are you passionate about? What do you like to do in your free time?
In my free time, there are multiple things. So one of the things is I try to, and that's actually more my morning passion, is trying to do some sports, which is really helping me. I always figure out when I'm traveling too much and I don't have the time in the mornings, how desperate I'm needing that. The other part is the short times at home, enjoying the playtime with the kids. And then clearly, I said it before, I did not make the pilot's license just for business reasons. I mean, it's a family tradition. My grandfather actually founded a first flyers club in our region. Then my uncle took it on, and I was just the next logical candidate. But from that perspective, I really enjoy that because it's giving you a different perspective, and it also links back to so many other things, and it gives you a certain set of freedom, because I can basically get in a plane and get anywhere I want to be. I mean, not get anywhere. I mean, just quickly flying to New York doesn't work. I mean, it would be a multi-day trip. So, but other than that, it's for me that's a very very important fact in just getting out of everything. And I still enjoy that there is no cell phone reception up there. They are working on all of that, but it's actually that's what I always laughed about a long distance travel. Is by the point in time I worked for a long period also in Australia, getting on a plane, getting everything turned off. And at one point in time, one of my mentors said, "It's like, so what's the problem? Why do you need to get on a plane for that?" It's like, should I show you? It's like, here is your phone. This is how you turn it off. And I looked at him like, as he actually showed me the holy grail of everything. But it's in the end, it's so easy. It's sometimes it's like, yeah, let's just turn these things off and let's just turn all of these communication devices and everything off for a while. Um, that's always my also kind of my advice, which I always give to new people, which I start which constantly keep looking at their phone or now their watches or anything else is the question which one of my mentors always said is like, as long as you're not a brain surgeon and no one is going to die if you're not answering your phone within the next 5 minutes, is like you can turn it away. It's like I can sit for dinner here in the Bay Area with people who run multi-billion-dollar companies, and they can spend an hour or two at a dinner without ever actually watching on their phone or their wrist for an Apple Watch or anything else. And I think that's an important lesson to look at. So use the time which you have for yourself very wisely and use it really for yourself, and don't become a slave to technology like what we all foresee what AI and ML are going to do to us at one point. But we are already slaves of our iPhones and everything else. Turn these boxes off, or at least figure out how to ignore them for a while.
Great advice.
Great wisdom, Yves.
Yes.
That is a great place to not ask any more questions. That's a mic drop moment. Well done. Appreciate that.
Thank you for your time today and for joining us.
Now, for this episode's one story in 1 minute.
Okay, TJ, it is your turn.
Oh boy.
You have 1 minute. Tell me a good story. A good
All
story,
right.
okay?
All right, a good story.
Ready?
Okay, here we
Set.
go. We're ready.
Go.
Go. All right, we're not going to get it in a minute. I'm pretty confident, but we're going to give it our best shot. So I watched a movie. This is super random. I wasn't planning on this one to be my story, but I saw this movie, my favorite now, A Million Miles Away. And so this is a story about a gentleman that wanted to become an astronaut. It's based on a true story. I didn't memorize his character's name, but ultimately his family starts as migrant farm workers. And he, in the journey of kind of going through this with his family as a young boy, he's gifted in mathematics and science. And so while he's working and coming up in this with his family, he's realizing the life he doesn't want to live. And he's kind of struggling with this, like, I got to be grateful for what I've been raised in because it's made me who I am. On this journey of 30 years, he fought in order to become the first ever astronaut that had journeyed through life the way that he did. And he ultimately he was on the Discovery. So not long after the Challenger incident, he was on that next shuttle. And what I loved is the 5 ingredients that he gave for success in life. So 1 was find your goal. 2 was know how far that you actually are from it. 3 was draw a roadmap. Ingredient 4 is if you don't know how, learn. And ingredient number 5 is when you think you've made it, you probably need to work harder. And so for me, that was a really powerful, those are 5 good nuggets of what does it take to persevere, to grow, and to go through life. And so, yeah, if you haven't checked it out, it's a family movie. If your kids are young enough, they're probably going to look at that and go, that's a boring adult film. So they probably need to be in like middle school, high school to watch it. But A Million Miles Away, great movie. I hope that you enjoyed it. It's on Amazon Prime. So not to give a shout out to Amazon, but there you have it. So that's my story for today.
Good. I like a good story that also has some takeaway nuggets. So that was a good story you passed.
I appreciate it.
Well, that's a wrap for this episode. It was great having Yves join us and hearing about the business he's built. Great content, valuable. Tune in, like us, share, do all the good things for us.
All the things, we appreciate it. We're learning as we go through this, having fun. getting to meet really cool people. But yeah, so Comdivision, thank you so much for incredible content. Actually excited to see you here in a couple of weeks when you come back to the North America side of the world. Looking forward to that. So thank you so much. And we're looking forward to spending more time together.
So until then, have a great week and do a decision.
Do a decision. We did better before. We're getting there. We're gonna figure this out like around episode 30.
We're doing this 30 times. Just kidding.
love
I
it.
get to do this 30 times.
30 times at least.